Okay. So this is a crazy one. So I watched the Free Britney documentary on Hulu last night, and so it's fresh in my mind. Basically, there's so many there's so many things to cover on this, and it just was like, while I was watching it, just all these tiny little topics, everything that I cover on this channel just was popping up. Every little like red flag, basically, about celebrity, about women, about media, about social media, about perception, identity, all of those things, expectations, assumptions, all of those things. So I watched one about Britney last night. Now, obviously, I was familiar. If you're not familiar, then you're probably like, what? With Britney Spears' Instagram and all the I guess I'm just going to say rumors behind her cries for help and all that kind of stuff, which is like a whole other thing, right? Like that is just, I mean, that's a huge topic. But I wanted to focus more so on her, basically like her journey through fame and how her identity changed and how people perceived her and how they like basically like the narrative of her life was sort of created, because it seems to be like a very similar theme with there are similar themes, I think, with I don't know if you guys ever watched the one about Amy Winehouse. I believe that was on Netflix, but they both had kind of this similar like real person, down to earth kind of thing. Like I think that Britney was much more of a performer, and Amy was a little bit more like, she was just an artist. Like she was just incredibly talented and she wanted to share her talent, and that was about it. It was like her passion. And she wasn't really interested in the fame or the attention in any way. Like I remember seeing an interview with her very early on where she was basically like, before she took off and she became super famous, that she was like, if that happened, I wouldn't be able to handle it. Britney definitely seemed like she kind of enjoyed the attention. Like she loves to like put on a show, and she was like very much a performer, but she also appeared to be like a very, now obviously, I mean, like I'm going by the documentaries and I'm going by like whatever I took from those. I don't know. Nobody knows like the whole truth. But she also seemed to be just kind of like a very down to earth country girl, you know? So they had interviews obviously with like the paparazzi who would follow her around, and they kind of corroborated that she, you know, in the beginning would like give them the photo, like enjoyed the attention, was kind of like, you know, waving and smiling and whatever. But obviously that takes a turn when, you know, your identity or who you are is sort of like manipulated, and the narrative is created by people who don't know you, who aren't you, who are kind of like putting forth this idea about you that doesn't relate to you at all. It's societies. This is like a very human thing for some reason. It's super dark, but we're so happy to root for like the underdog, you know, people who they don't have anything. They're coming up. They're super talented. We're rooting for them. But as soon as they get to that point where they're successful and popular and they have this celebrity and people love them, we love to watch that fall. It's this like idea of good and bad, conflict and resolve, I think, where we're constantly looking for these like peaks. So it's like a positive, it's like going this way and it hits the positive peak. And then once it hits that positive peak, we're like, okay, well, that's boring. Like, you don't want people to just constantly win. That's not a good story, right? So like, you're expecting the fall. You're waiting for the fall. And it's exciting because you're like, this person who they were at the top and now they're at the bottom. Give that a little while and then eventually people will be like, oh, well, now I kind of like, I miss them. I kind of like, I'm rooting for them to come back and like make a comeback. And then they, you know, it's just this endless cycle. It's pretty sick. And I genuinely think that it's just human nature. It goes back to like the gladiator days, watching gladiators fight. It's this like, we want to see, it's like a blood sport. We want to see pain, you know? And obviously another really big takeaway was just like women in Hollywood and how women are treated. You know, just Britney and the Justin Timberlake story, right? So when he came out and accused her of cheating and basically like confirmed that he slept with her, when she was basically supposed to have this like image of this like perfect, I don't know, virgin flower or whatever the fuck it was supposed to be. And I don't know if you guys have seen it, but like that woman, I can't even remember who it was, but that woman comes out and like a governor of somewhere says that she like would want to shoot Britney or something. Is that what she said? Something like that. She's like, if I had the opportunity to shoot Britney, I would, because she's a bad role model for my daughter. And in an interview where Britney's told that, she literally says like, that's crazy. Like, that's a horrible thing to say, and I'm not responsible for babysitting your kids, which I have always agreed with. Entertainment is not meant to raise your children. You're meant to raise your children. Anyway, I wanted to read, I don't know if you guys follow the makeup artist Jordan Liberty. He's fucking amazing. Like, just a real person, you know? Also incredibly talented and very, very, very nice. All of my interactions, I've only met him like a few times, but all of my interactions with him have been wonderful. He's just like he's a real person, and I think that's one of the reasons that I like just gravitate towards him. He posted this thing after reading it. After watching the Britney documentary, and I just wanted to share it with you guys. So there's like 10 slides, so basically what I'm going to do is just kind of like sum it up a little bit for you, but I will link his post down below if you want to read the full thing. So he talks about basically like demonizing things like retouching makeup, Instagram or social media filters, surgeries, plastic surgeries, and then tearing down women for not looking perfect. And he's, referring to this as the social paradox. And he talks about how like a major part of the industry, I remember, growing up and watching the E channel, they would have like best dressed, worst dressed, and it's solely based on like tearing down a celebrity's appearance, typically women, because like what, dudes just go to red carpets wearing suits, right? He says Britney was a great example of this. When she looked her best, she was called a slut and a bad influence. When she was at her worst, she was a mess and had bad influence and ultimately became the punchline. And he talks about basically the impossible standards that we hold women in Hollywood too. If you're a woman, you have to look flawless at all times, and then you get called fake or retouched, and people go out of their way to find unflattering photos and angles of you. So it's like that same thing back to like we want to see the people at the top fall. Like if you look amazing all the time, people are constantly like digging. And I mean, I've talked about this before, but we've all seen it on like the trash mags or in, I don't know, those random like internet articles where it's like these like 5 female celebrities who have aged horribly or whatever it is, And if you try to improve your appearance, then you're labeled as fake. And one of the things that he goes into is basically like, as a makeup artist, not promoting things like contouring or trying to like create an ideal. I mean, there's just like various examples that, like I said, I'm going to list the post because he goes into a lot of things that are just like wrong with the beauty industry and just like Hollywood in general as a professional makeup artist. And it's definitely worth the read. But he made some really excellent points and a lot of things that like I have talked about and also thought about because I think that this is something that is, it used to be something that was like focused only on celebrities, but celebrity has changed, especially with things like the internet. You have the traditional celebrities like Hollywood, people in Hollywood, whatever, but now with influencers, I feel like more and more people are being exposed to this kind of thing, and it's becoming more of a norm that like a regular person who starts a YouTube channel, is being exposed to these kinds of comments and these kinds of things from their audience or people who just like not necessarily their fans or their subscribers, but like people who come across their content, right? So it's just becoming more widespread, I think, with things like social media influencers, which in my opinion it's made me more sympathetic to the idea of, tearing down a celebrity because for whatever reason, we have viewed them. You flip through magazines and you see them on pages, or you watch, an interview on TV or something and they're on the red carpet and they have this like image that they're supposed to portray at all times and they have to be this thing. And if they deviate from that thing, then we criticize them. If we don't like whatever that thing is, we criticize them. If we don't like the way they look or the way they speak or what they wear, well, I guess that's what they look like, but what they're doing, their choices artistically. You know, an actor makes a bad movie and all of a sudden it's like the end of his career. Oh, he's really lost it. Like he must not be, you know, they've totally lost it. They used to be so talented, blah, blah, blah. Once again, the rise and fall, right? Back to Britney. It was like this weird obsession with her sexuality. And you could tell from like interviews that she in the very beginning felt comfortable with herself and was like, why is this a thing that we're not, that like people would be offended by? The 90s into the early 2000s were a very weird time. It's this around the same time that rap was being like censored a lot on radio and trying to shut that down because of foul language. And it was sort of the same argument, was like, these are bad influences on our kids and blah, blah, blah. And a lot of the counter arguments for like rap at the time was like, we're not raising your kids, dude. Like, this is an art form and we can say what we want to say. It was the free speech argument of the 90s and early 2000s. But this ideal that we create with celebrity, or we sort of like choose this person and then you put them up on a pedestal. It's like this obsession with deity, you know? It's this like worship culture, I think. And I think that's a very human thing, but it's so unrealistic and so unfair to put on a single person, because once again, you completely erase the fact that is a living human being. That's a person. Like, put yourself in that situation just for a second, just a little mental experiment. And I think that's one of the reasons that, like, you know, in today's world, we're criticizing the idea of perfection and trying to go towards perfection, but then we're all also so like wrapped up in the idea of perfection, and we idolize perfection, and secretly we all want to be that, I think, and we all like strive for it. And it's super damaging. But it's like this, I saw someone say something about this recently. It's like this, maybe it was Jordan Liberty's post actually, something about like the market, like companies who are trying to, you know, go by supply and demand. So, you know, I've said this before, but like people like to blame society and say like it's society's fault, and society is made up of us. Society is made up of people. We can't criticize these people who we've put on this pedestal who are trying to reach perfection for not being perfect, when all we do is expect them to be perfect, expect them to be a certain way, expect them to have a specific image. They're not allowed to be people. And if they aren't perfect, then we tear them down. No one can live like that. It really makes me appreciate people in Hollywood who still maintain this element of mystery, who aren't constantly out there. Now, some people don't have this option. I don't think Britney Spears had this option to be mysterious, you know? You reach a certain level of fame and people are just like in your life, and it's very difficult to not, you know, be exposed. I was thinking about Adele, because I think she had a very similar, she probably learned a lot from Amy Winehouse's experience, considering they went to the same school. And, you know, I think Amy was probably a very big role model for Adele. But Adele reached a massive level of fame very quickly, it seemed. And you never see, she's very low key. She shares things occasionally, but you don't know a ton about her life. She's not out there like showing every time, man, my batteries. Actually, I want to talk about Beyonce, because I think Beyonce has sort of done a similar thing where they pour their heart and soul into their art, and their personal life they keep like very closed off. I kind of want that to be a separate video though. Let me know if you want to hear that. Another female example that I was thinking of recently was, I don't know if you guys watched the Miley Cyrus interview when she went on Joe Rogan's podcast. This was like a little while back, but I was really, really interested in just observing her and listening to her, because in my personal opinion, I think she's one of the few like true classic rock stars. like especially of her generation, she might be the last one. Because she embodies this unique talent, many different talents, unique voice, and a life. She's lived a life. She's had experiences, and she very much hasn't done what she's been expected to do. And when people break free of that, they receive so much criticism. I mean, you'll remember, you know? Now, I can't say that I was like, yeah, like, be all sexual at those fucking award shows and stuff, you know? It's not like something that I would have done. But I completely understand the process that she went through. And I give her a lot of fucking credit for experiencing life and maintaining who she is and just saying basically like fuck you to all the people who expect certain things from me. And also just not, I mean, this is like unrelated and kind of an aside, but she doesn't sound like everybody else. She has a very unique voice, and I think she's very interesting. Anyway, what I appreciate most of all about her is that those experiences that she's had, and she's been very like upfront about, are real. They're things that everyone goes through. Everyone goes through these like, or should go through these like life changes, life experiences. Like, we're only on this earth, and it's wild that we are. This is like a miracle that we are able to have consciousness and be and live on this earth and have experiences and interact with other people and like fall in love with people and have our hearts broken and like, I don't know, like live in a small town if we want to, or go to a big city and become super famous. Like there's all these opportunities, and it's up to each individual person to live it the way that they want to. And I don't understand why anyone should put like certain parameters on another person and expect them to be exactly what like they think they should be. This is obviously something that I talk about a lot. But I don't give a fuck if a person is a celebrity, how famous they are, how much money they have. I don't understand treating them like they are just a product, a commodity, this thing that isn't, you stop viewing them, you stop viewing Britney Spears as a daughter, a mother, a sister, a friend. And I think, you know, going back to Amy Winehouse's documentary, I think we all know how it ends. It ends in tragedy. I don't know if it'll ever change. I think it's human nature, honestly. I do. I think it's human nature. Like I said, it goes all the way back to the very, very beginning. There's a reason that like movies are made to have high and low points. There has to be conflict and resolve. That's what we're attracted to. It's interesting. There's a reason that negative news gets so much cover, and it's because, I don't know, I guess we're masochists. Those were the biggest things that I took away from that it had me thinking about, you know, and just connecting. And when I saw Jordan's post, again, you should read it because he covers a lot. I mean, like so many things regarding like race and expectations in the beauty industry and in Hollywood, which, I mean, fucking huge topics, you know? I can't fit them all in here, but yeah, that got me upset. If you haven't watched it, I highly recommend it. It was a good one. It was very interesting. It sheds a lot of light. Particularly, they speak to a lot of the people who were incredibly close to Britney, because she's not in it, she's not contributing. But I think it's worth watching. And the whole conservatorship thing is like a whole, like I said, fucking whole other topic. I mean, that's definitely why you should watch it, to understand a little bit more about like that system and how it works. I guess that's it. Please leave me your thoughts. I don't know. I mean, this was mostly like a rant because these kinds of topics, like this in particular, everything that I covered here hits very close to home for me for some reason. But I want to talk to you guys about it a little bit more, and I would be very interested in continuing this conversation regardless. Probably going to come up a lot. You know what I mean? All right. Great talk. Great rant.